won't, not in this way. I'm a dream that died by light of day. Gonna hold up half the sky and say, only I own it. Now feel my heart beating. I feel my heart underneath my skin. Oh, I can feel my heart beating. 'Cause you make me feel like I'm alive again. Alive again. Oh, you make me feel like I'm alive again. Turn your magic on, and you should say everything you want to dream away. Under this pressure, under this weight, we are diamonds.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, wherever in the world you are connecting from today. Thank you so much for being part of our Hacking HR live chat series. We started doing this at the beginning of this year. I got to tell you, we were doing podcasts for a long time, and I myself got a little bit bored of the podcast format. I wanted something a little bit different, live, so that we could have an audience asking questions and interacting with us. And we changed the format. So now we're doing this Hacking HR live chat series, which we started at the beginning of the year, inviting brilliant book authors to come to the show and share their insights, their ideas, their recommendations, their research with us in the community. So it's been really special. It's been fantastic experience to have all these amazing and brilliant researchers and authors with us in this community and in the Hacking HR live chat series. For those of you who are connected live right now, well, once again, thank you so much for being here in whatever social media channel you are tuning in from. Please let us know where you're connecting from. I always like to know where everybody is connecting from in the world. Of course, always seeing a lot of people. I see a fellow Arizonan connecting as well. So thank you so much, everybody, for being here. If you have missed any of the previous live chat series or conversations that we've had in this series, just go to our website, hackinghr.io, click on live chats, and you will see them all in there. There's not only a good amount of conversations in there, but great conversations with amazing insights from all these authors that I have brought to the show. So please go to the website, click on live chats, and check them out, because there's a lot of amazing stuff in there. So today, super excited to talk about Get It Done, surprising lessons from the science of motivation. So super excited about this conversation. And I am going to bring my guest today, Ayelet, to the screen. Good morning, Ayelet. How are you?
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. I'm great. How are you, Enrique?
Well, thank you so much. I am doing well. And, we got people from all over the world connecting here. Always exciting to see their questions and their comments based on our conversations. So super excited to have you with me today, Ayelet. And to begin with, I would love for you to introduce yourself to our audience. Please let us know more about who you are, the work you've done, and anything else that you want to share with me and, of course, with our community.
With pleasure. I'm a professor at the University of Chicago. I am also a motivation scientist. I'm a social psychologist. I've been studying motivation for over 20 years now, and I'm happy to tell you about a few of the things that I found.
Fantastic. Well, awesome. Thank you so much. And of course, I want to talk about the book, and I want to talk about your research areas. But the first question that I want to ask you is this: the surprising components, surprising facts, surprising insights about the science of motivation to get stuff done. When you were writing this book, when you were doing your research, what is one thing that you yourself were surprised about one thing that you found that you were like, whoa, I wasn't expecting this, or I was expecting it, but not in this, to this extent?
Well, so there were many little surprises. I think that the big surprise was that a framework emerged, and let me explain. Okay, so I mentioned I've been studying motivation for many years, and then I sat down really only wanted to put some order, okay, to organize this like messy room. There are so many studies on motivation in the last decade. The area is exploding. Okay, the
Yeah.
psychologists studies, economists studying it, businesses, and so I was just trying to create a dictionary. I was amazed that there was a framework, and actually that you can look at all the interventions that we study and put them in 4 buckets, which is setting a goal, monitoring progress, addressing multiple goals, and soliciting social support. And for me, that was the aha moment that, okay, I'm not writing a dictionary, I'm writing a book.
Oh, that is fantastic. Now, that was surprising. One, when you were doing your research, was there one thing that you found out was it's still a misconception about motivation, right? Because as you said before, for so long we have been in contact with the concept of motivation, the impact of motivation at work, and blah blah blah. But is there anything that you have seen us people in general talking about that is a misconception about motivation?
I don't have to choose between two. So I think that there are a few big misconceptions. Let me start with one, which is learning from failure. Okay, we think that failures and setbacks are great teachers. Okay, we tell each other that this is a moment of learning. We think that if we just had this bad experience, we will learn so much. And unfortunately, most of the time we don't learn much from failures. Now, this is not to say that there is no really good information in these setbacks. It's just to say that the naive perception by which, well, that did not work out, but at least I had a good lesson. Well, unless you did the work, you actually probably learned not much.
Wow. That is quite a misconception, because that's been around for at least for as far as I know, and go back in time. That has been something that everybody says, right? I mean, people learn from failures, and use failure for learning and whatnot, right?
Yeah, I think that maybe the reason that we talk about it so much is because it is hard to do. Okay? I write in my book that it's probably the same reason that I tell my young son to wash his hands. Okay, he will not do it unless I say so. But to give you an example, okay, we run studies, okay, we run lab studies in which we let people learn some new information, and the way they learn it is by guessing the answers to some questions, and they're like always 2 possible answers. So I ask you, what is the meaning of some symbol in a new language that you don't know? And it can be an animal or a piece of furniture, and you guess, and you either get it right or you get it wrong. What we find is that if you got it right, now you just guessed, okay, you didn't know. If you got it right with your guess, you're much more likely to remember that and use that information later than if you got it wrong. Okay? If you guessed that this symbol is a bird and we said, no, it's actually a piece of furniture, you are very likely going to learn much less. You might not remember what the answer that you gave. You might not remember what is the correct answer. And this is for very minor setbacks. Okay, this is for very minor negative feedback. The general phenomenon is that we tend to disengage because it hurts our ego. Okay, so I get negative feedback and I don't want to read it. I don't want to learn about it. I don't want to engage. And even if we can emotionally get ourselves to engage, it's often cognitively a bit harder to learn from setbacks because you learn by elimination. You learn what's not. And what's not is always harder. I joke that like it's very hard to train a pet by telling them where they are not supposed to do their business. Right?
You
You
know,
need to say where you should do this.
yeah, it's interesting that you say that because in the context of failure, right? When you tell somebody, and I know this is an example that a lot of people use, something like, "Don't think about a pink elephant," and everybody's gonna think about a pink elephant, right? It's the don't that then it won't necessarily stick and whatnot. You want them to think about the thing that you want them to actually think about. And what I'm reflecting about this when it comes to failure is that maybe we focusing on what you actually want to do, what you actually want to see as a result, the outcome that you want, the positive side of things may stick better than the things that you don't want to think about, or that you want to forget, or that hurt your ego, like you said before. I never thought about it that way, actually.
Yes, Enrique, I love the connection that you make to basically do not goals or avoidance goals, which is another misconception. Many people set their goals in terms of don't do something.
Yeah.
Okay? Don't think about the pink elephant, or don't think about your ex, okay, or don't do something. These goals are much harder to pursue than any two goals. Avoidance goals are harder than approach goals. And, for a few reasons, okay, you mentioned, it's just like, how do you know that you're successful? You check yourself and you constantly bring it back to mind. How do I know that I am not eating that food? Well, let me think about this food, and when I had it, okay, how do I know that I don't think about my ex? Well, I have to think about that person. So that makes it harder. And then there are just like plain rebellions. Okay? When someone tells us not to do something, it's exactly the thing that we want to do. When we tell ourselves not to do something, it's also often the thing that we want to do.
Yeah. Why do we do that, though? I mean, when you look at what I'm thinking about is even the traffic signs, right, and in on streets and whatnot, it's all written in the negative, right? What not to do, or a lot of them are written in the negative, right? Or even at work when we write policies for employee policies, or even legislation, it's always the what not to do instead of what to do. So why is it that we're so drawn to write stuff in that way?
That's a good question. I bet that it is just often easy. Okay? It's just easy to say that you should not drive in a certain way, and you should not interact with people in a certain way, and it's tempting. It's easy. Not everybody uses this avoidance language. When we ask people to describe their New Year's resolutions, many of them realize that a more positive frame and approach goal will be better. But many people do talk about avoiding certain things, and they then report that they have low intrinsic motivation to stick to these goals, and a couple of months later, they tell us that they have failed.
Yeah. Yeah. Now let me go back to the book, and talking about getting things done and all the lessons from motivation. And I would love for you to talk a little bit about the book and the research you did, and if you can answer this question too, right? How do we motivate people to do something? And I know this is the question of the book, but if you can tell us more about the insights, what you found out as you were doing your research and writing the book, and whether it's possible to actually motivate people and how we can do so.
Yes, thank you. So I would love to talk about Get It Done, the book that I published last year. And, when you look at the research on motivation, it often operates, we often motivate ourselves and people by either changing something about our situation or changing the way that we think about our situation. Okay, and that means that if I want to be more productive, I need to identify the situation in which I'm the most productive. Okay, you might be productive in the cafe. I might be only productive in my office with the door closed. You might be productive when you listen to music. I actually cannot listen to music when I try to work. And so understanding the situation, understanding what the people that need to be around us, and nowadays when many people work from home, that is critical. Changing something around us or changing the way we think about it. Okay? Think about your job in terms of something that is exciting, that is important for you, that connects you with people, that is part of your identity. And it can really go into each of these strategies and the research in much more detail. The naive mistake for people who are trying to motivate themselves and others is to count on willpower. Okay, no, just beat yourself. Okay, just saying, oh, you really should work harder. Okay, and tomorrow you will do better, and like next year is going to be much different. There is not much evidence that just by telling people to work harder, you get much.
Wow. I am thinking about the workplace as a breeding ground to experiment with science of motivation. And what you see in the workplace is we want people to do something, but we don't think about the conditions that make them do that something, right? For example, I'm a big promoter, by the way, of remote work, or at least flexibility, not necessarily remote work, but flexibility, right? So the big question for a lot of business leaders is, or the big conundrum for them is, we want people to collaborate more, we want people to innovate more together, we want people to be more productive and deliver with higher performance. And then they think that the way to do that is bringing people, forcing them to go back to the office, because that's how they think these things happen. And I am wondering if they are really motivating people to be more productive, to be delivering with higher performance, to collaborate more, if by creating conditions that people actually don't want, like, for example, being forced to go back to the office. So how do we even motivate those that are designing policies around motivation?
A difficult question, right? How to motivate a person who motivates.
Yeah.
But I think that what you actually meant is that how do we inform our leaders about research? How do we make them better aware of how to motivate people? And now, education. Okay, you talked about flexible workplace. I'm with you. Okay, this is what people tell us that they want. The research on productivity when working from home doesn't show that there is much reason to worry. There is some reason to be concerned for people who are completely remote workers. There's evidence that they lose on the networking. Okay, and there are some studies showing that they get less opportunities to advance. Okay, they are less likely to hear about advancing opportunities. They are less likely to socially interact with the people who may decide on a promotion. And so there are some losses there. Now, when we think about why people go to work, how to motivate them, well, people go to work because they want to afford their lifestyle, and everybody understands that. Okay, you need to pay people to get them to work for you. The other two motivations are to do something meaningful, something interesting, okay, pursue meaning and value. This is one thing. And then the other thing is to socially connect. Okay? Make friends at work. Okay? The two of us just met because of our work. And we want to, as leaders, as managers, understand that a satisfied employee is someone who is not just affording their lifestyle, but also feel interested in what they do and feel that there are opportunities to socially connect. And they don't need to be in person. They don't need to be necessarily with your boss. They can be with people in the organization, or people that are related to what you do. But social connection is critical, and in particular for young people, we see that they need that, and they don't always find it in the modern workplace.
Yeah. You know what's interesting? That I'm not sure if you encountered this during your research, but I have read in so many different papers and surveys and research that there's a certain threshold of salary, right, that you're earning every year, after which it doesn't matter that much that you're paying significantly more. Your motivation and productivity are not changing, or growing at a similar pace or rate than your increase in salary. And that's because after that threshold, what people are looking for is what you're talking about, right? Those connections, finding meaning at work, making the friends at work. But when you look at reality in the workplace, you find so often that very often actually you find that we're not creating those conditions. We're not creating the conditions for people to have friends at work. We're not creating the conditions for people to have meaning and purpose at work, or to build social networks and social communities at work. And I wonder, why are we missing that piece that is so powerful to motivate people to be more productive beyond just what you're paying them?
I completely agree. I would say that when I teach management, I start by just presenting the data on job satisfaction. And as I'm sure you know, the majority of employees in the US are unhappy at work. That is around 70%. Around half of the employees in the US are looking for another job at any given moment. And by the way, that was the situation before the pandemic. So that's not something that happened over the last 3 years. That means that many managers can do better. And they can do better if they understand why people go to work and what is the source of the motivation, what is the content of the motivation, and then what are the strategies to motivate people. Working in a team, absolutely critical for people to feel satisfied at work. We are social animals. We are used to work with other people. We don't do very well by ourselves. And so you, as a manager, you need to find the right structure for people to be meeting other people at the work, to do things together. Setting targets, how much and how soon. You need to put numbers that are motivating, that are energizing, without leading people to feel that there is no way, that this is way too ambitious, that I will never be able to meet your standards. Which really requires collecting data, understanding what is the right number for the right person at the right place. I can go on, setting goals that are not too abstract, but also not too concrete. So you understand the meaning without losing sight on, how to do things. And we see that sometimes goals become so abstract that you have no idea what to do. Sometimes they're too concrete, and it's like, okay, well, I will complete this report, but I don't really see the point. I don't really understand the big picture here.
I know.
Yeah.
I know the in the framework that you worked out in the book, one of the components of the framework is setting the goals, right? Setting the right goals. And I want to ask you this: is it possible to set goals in a way that delivers both what the business needs from that person, but also what that person is looking for at a perhaps more personal level, right? Let me put it in another way. We often find, we often see this idea of helping people connect their mission and purpose in life with what they do at work. And if we find a little overlap, it doesn't have to be 100% overlap, but if we find a little bit of an overlap between what they are doing at work and what they want out of life, then you have a little bit of a fantastic opportunity, to get more of, to receive more from them. So is it possible to set goals in that way?
Set goals such that they connect to what else people have in their life
and what they have to do for business too.
Yeah, well, if I get you right, and we can, and let me know if I don't. I think that you are referring to the relationship between the goals that you set and what else is going on and what other goals people have. Would that be accurate?
And exactly. But what those goals that you have in your own life. So, you go to work, and then at work, they tell you, these are the things that you have to do. But how can we set those goals in a way that is not just what I do, but it's also what I want as a human being out of life?
Yes, and the way I see that is like the fit between the goal to do something and your other goals in life, okay? And what do you want to do as a person? And I would connect this to that, like the third element. I said that there are 4 elements for keeping yourself and others motivated, which is setting a goal, monitoring progress, managing multiple goals, and social support. This is the third, okay? This is how this goal, okay, that was set now fits with everything else. Basically, do these goals fit together? Are they coherent? Do I look to pursue them all, or do I feel that by pursuing one thing, I compromise the other? Okay, and I can look at this on the level of the organization. Okay, does the work that I do on this project fits with the work that another team is doing, okay, or the work that I do on another project, or is this something that's like pulling me in opposite directions? My conversations with organizations, that it often feels like our goals are rather incoherent, okay, like one is pursuing like one goal and the other one is pursuing just the opposite. Also on a personal level, we see that some people feel torn and others have more coherence. Now, coherence is, of course, important for the business, because if your left hand doesn't know what your right hand does, then like that, there is really no progress. Okay, you're just doing and undoing things. But beyond that, feeling that your goals fit with each other is a source of well-being and motivation. That is, people work harder when they feel that the different aspects support each other. So I can stay abstract on like that, different tasks at work. I can also give you the concrete example of, let's say, a career and family. Okay, people that feel that their career and family support each other. Okay, my family helps my career supports my family, are more motivated at work and experience greater well-being. People that think that there is a choice to be made, that it's not like it's either or, it's not something that go together, have lower life satisfaction and less motivation at work. Maybe also less motivation with our family, but we did not measure that.
Yeah, wow, that's powerful, right? That alignment of what you're doing at work, but also what you want out of life, and how much more powerful that can be than if you have to make the choice of either this or that. Now, let me ask you other question. You mentioned this before. We've seen the science of job, the science and the data of job satisfaction and job engagement, and in the past 25 years, it sucks. you look at it, and which is why I find it so ironic that so many companies are saying, well, people are disengaged because they are not working from the office, they are at home, and blah blah blah. And I'm like, no, that's not true. I mean, the numbers are pretty much the same post-pandemic and the 20 years before the pandemic. So you could have done something way before the pandemic and you chose not to, or you didn't know what to do exactly. But the point here is that there are so many people that are disengaged and dissatisfied with work. And it's a privilege for some just to leave and find something else. But a lot of people can't leave their jobs. They just have to stick to that workplace for many reasons. And we may not want to talk about that. But this is what I want to ask you. How can somebody be self-motivated for personal growth when they are in an environment that they don't enjoy, they don't like, that is not really pushing them for the best and trying to get the best out of them? How can somebody be self-motivated in that kind of environment?
Well, you mentioned that the cost of having so many people unhappy at work, and it is huge. Okay, it is huge for society. It is huge for businesses. Just the amount of resources that go into HR, because we constantly need to hire and train new people, is insane, right? And this is because the employees that we have leave, and then we have people who don't feel that they can leave. If you feel unmotivated, then something got to change, and you can change the way you think about what you do, or you can change what you do. I would say before you jump into like switching professions, try to motivate yourself with the much easier things. Okay, like try to change some simple things about your environment. I mentioned taking individual projects and making them more into a team project, having more variety of tasks. We know that humans are terrible when the job is monotonic, so they find ways to switch roles so that you work on different aspects. Find the best way for you to stay motivated by setting targets that are challenging, by looking back at what you have achieved. We ran a study a few years back in Seoul, in South Korea, where we had employees in an advertising company reflecting on what they have achieved this year. And just their reflection made them happier with their current role. The interesting thing is that another group of employees was reflecting on what they have yet to achieve. Okay, so what is ahead of them. And while they were less satisfied with their current job, they were actually more interested in advancing. Okay? They wanted to become their own managers. So that there are different ways to monitor your progress, and they have different benefits. You might need to change your job. You will need to change your job if there is no way to find meaning in it, if there is no way to socially connect to people at your work, or people at your profession, or people like your neighbors who might connect to you because of who you are, because of your career and your job. If that doesn't exist, if there is no ways of finding meaning and social connection, then switch jobs. Let me also say that when people switch jobs, they often make the mistake of thinking that they will only care about extrinsic incentives in their new job. And so they choose a job that doesn't fit them. It's a job that might pay slightly more than my current job, but might not provide more meaning or more social connection. And they're back to square one, looking for another job the following year.
Yeah. The interesting thing about that last comment that you made is that the opposite is also true. You may find that the new thing that you will do has less extrinsic factors to motivate you. For example, they pay you less, but you find so much more meaning that you are like, I am going to do this. Or for example, people like me, I held a corporate job for a long time, and then I became a solopreneur. And it is less money than I was making before. It is so much more work, but I found meaning and passion and a place where I can um, it's an outlet for my talents, I think. And that to me is priceless. So I would choose this every day versus that job that I had before where they were paying me more, but I had literally almost zero meaning and almost zero passion about that job. So that to me is really powerful too.
Enrique, you are the minority of people in terms of your insight, unfortunately. And let me tell
Really?
you what I mean. We went to
Wow.
study. This is a study with Caitlin Woolley, who was here now. She's at Cornell, where we had people choose between two jobs. Okay, these are people coming to our lab. Okay, so the job is very short. Okay, you're just research participant, and you're choosing between whether to listen to the song "Hey Jude" by the Beatles or to a loud alarm clock. That sounds like a no-brainer, right? But the loud alarm paid more. Okay, and so you Enrique would choose the song. 70-something% of our participants chose the loud alarm. We later asked them whether they regret, whether they wish they have chosen the other task, and the majority of the people who chose the alarm regretted their choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So it's interesting though, because then that means I don't know. I'm making this conclusion here, but I would love to hear your insights about this. Does that mean that maybe we're just thinking short term and we're not thinking, am I going to be miserable in a year from now if I switch jobs, to something that is paying me more, but I know that I will find either less meaning or maybe I don't even know. Maybe I'm just jumping into something just because there's more money. And by the way, let me bring that down to reality with one example. Recently, I can't remember where I saw it, but there was research showing that a lot of people who left their jobs during the pandemic regretted leaving those jobs and now want to come back either to similar jobs or similar industries because for some reason they regretted it. So any insights about that?
Well, we think short term, and this is
Mm,
very much what humans do, and other animals as well. Okay, like we were not taught in our evolution as a species to think long terms. Um, this is quite intuitive. Okay, as we evolved as people, okay, there was no bank, so there was no point in putting some money for retirement. Okay, there was no retirement, there was no money, and if you have food, eat it now because it will get. Okay, so we think short term. Life, our modern life requires thinking long term, and that's really hard. So there are
yeah.
many strategies that we need to use in order to get ourselves to think about the person that we are going to be next year or in 5 years from now or in 20 years from now, because this is not just how our brain evolved. This is
Yeah.
not intuitive. But there was another point that you mentioned that which I think is important, and this is that we actually don't think that intrinsic motivation, that feeling good about what we do, is that important for our future self. When we make plans for a new job, or and switching to a new job, we think that we will care about extrinsic incentives, and we are right. Okay, we will care about money. That's
Yeah.
usually correct for most people. We don't realize that we will also care about doing something meaningful, and we don't realize that just as much as it was how to get out of bed this morning if there's nothing exciting waiting for me today, in the job that you are later going to have, you will have the same experience. If something is not exciting, you will find it hard to get out of bed in the morning. I've been
Yeah.
asking my students about their future jobs, and they often don't realize that intrinsic motivation will matter.
Yeah, it's interesting though, and I know I have to let you go because your time is up. We are a few minutes over this time that is scheduled with you, and I want to be respectful for that. But I do want to mention this as we wrap up. Um, Again, another piece of research, I can't remember the source, but I think it's there's been replicability about this, but some people saying that they would love to become entrepreneurs, right? And it's a significant number. It's not a small number. It's a significant number of full-time employees saying that they want to become entrepreneur, and when you ask them why, you never find that the top reason is because they want to make more money, even if that's a long-term idea. It is because they want more flexibility, they want more autonomy, they want more decision-making power, and it seems to me that these are intrinsic motivators. So maybe there's a little bit also of an internal struggle in people between, yes, wanting to have that extra, 20% bump in salary if you move to another job that is going to pay you more than your current job, versus the things that fulfill you, I guess, as a human being.
I completely agree. And if there is one message that people are going to take from this conversation, is that it is very important to understand what is intrinsically motivating for you. That is, what do you find motivating as you do it? Okay, it's not in the long run. It's not I will do it today and then by the next of the month something will happen, or in 5 years something will happen. How can you find meaning and satisfaction in what you do now? This is the intrinsic motivation part, and it is absolutely critical for staying motivated.
Yeah. Well, Ayelet, thank you so much for spending this time with me, with the community, discussing about your book and your insights and your research. I am thankful that you came to share with us more, and I'm hoping that, of course, those in our people in our audience in HR that generally are tasked with designing or shaping culture and designing jobs, they take away a lot from this conversation to do, hopefully a better job designing jobs, right, that are more motivating, or that create the right conditions for people to be more motivated, particularly more intrinsically motivated. So, Ayelet, thank you so much for being here in the show with me today.
Thank you for having me, Enrique.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody. Stay tuned for the upcoming Hacking HR Live Chat series, conversations, and the many more events that we have planned for all of you. Have a wonderful day. Thank you, Ayelet, and thank you, everybody. See you all soon. Thank you.